Somewhere in the world tonight, a person is dying of old age. Their body, which has been repairing itself continuously for 8 or 9 decades, has finally reached the point where the repairs can't keep up with the damage. Cells that used to divide cleanly now make errors. Proteins that used to fold correctly now misfold. The machinery of life, which has been running without interruption since before that person could form a memory, is winding down. This is the oldest story in human experience. Every person who has ever lived has faced it. Every culture that has ever existed has tried to make sense of it. But what if it stopped being true? Not extended, not delayed by medicine or lifestyle. What if the biological process of aging simply ceased? What if you woke up tomorrow in a world where death from old age was no longer something that happened? The first thing most people think about is the personal, living long enough to see everything, never losing the people you love to time, the end of grief as a permanent feature of human life. But immortality, if it arrived, would reach far beyond any individual experience. It would change economies, cities, ecosystems, governments, science, culture, and the very structure of how human society organizes itself. It would create problems no one has ever had to solve before, and it would ask questions that go deeper than biology. Tonight, we explore what a world without death from aging actually looks like, not the dream of it, the reality. Let's begin. Before we can understand what immortality would mean, we need to understand why aging happens in the first place. This seems like it should have an obvious answer. Things wear out. Machines break down over time. Why should bodies be any different? But the biology of aging is considerably stranger than simple wear and tear. Many of the processes that cause aging are not inevitable physical deterioration. They are, in a sense, programmed. Not in the sense that an organism is designed to die, but in the sense that the biological systems that could prevent aging are either absent, switched off, or actively working against longevity. Consider cancer. Cancer cells, in many cases, are effectively immortal. They can divide indefinitely. They don't age. They don't wear out. The same machinery that makes cancer cells immortal, a mechanism involving an enzyme called telomerase, exists in normal cells, but is largely switched off after early development. If that switch stayed on, cells could replicate indefinitely without the chromosome shortening that contributes to aging. But staying on also dramatically increases cancer risk. This is one version of what biologists call the antagonistic pleiotropy theory of aging. Many genes that contribute to aging are genes that are beneficial in early life. They help development, they suppress cancer, they direct resources toward reproduction, but become harmful later. Aging, in this view, is partly a side effect of evolutionary optimization for reproduction, not a flaw waiting to be fixed. Then there is the accumulation of damage. Every day, the DNA in every cell in your body is damaged thousands of times by radiation, by chemical reactions, by errors in replication. The body has sophisticated repair systems for this damage, and they work extraordinarily well. But they are not perfect. Small errors accumulate. Cells that have accumulated too much damage either stop dividing, which contributes to tissue aging, or they divide despite the damage, which is how cancer begins. Mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside cells, also accumulate damage over time. Their own DNA, which they have separate from the nucleus, is particularly vulnerable. As mitochondrial function degrades, the energy production of cells becomes less efficient. Tissues become less able to repair themselves. The cascade of decline accelerates. And then there is the immune system. It ages too. The immune cells that patrol the body for infection, for cancer, for misfolded proteins, they become less effective over time. They are less able to clear out the cellular debris that accumulates with age. The chronic low-level inflammation that characterizes old age, sometimes called inflammaging, is partly a consequence of an immune system that is overactive in some ways and underactive in others, no longer calibrated correctly to the body it is supposed to protect. All of these processes are interconnected. Damage to mitochondria affects energy production, which affects repair. Accumulated cellular debris triggers immune responses, which cause inflammation, which damages more cells. The decline is not linear. It accelerates because the systems that slow it are themselves declining. What would it mean to stop all of this? To keep the repair systems running at full efficiency indefinitely? To prevent the telomere shortening, the mitochondrial decline, the immune drift, the accumulation of damage? To keep a body in a state of biological equilibrium, not of a specific age, but simply alive, indefinitely. This is what we mean by biological immortality in this scenario, not invincibility. Accidents would still happen. Disease caused by external pathogens would still be possible, but death from the internal process of aging would cease. The body would no longer wind down. Imagine the treatment exists. It is safe, accessible, and effective. It doesn't make you younger. It simply stops the aging process wherever you are when you take it. A 40-year-old takes it and remains biologically 40 indefinitely. A 70-year-old takes it and remains 70. The first thing that happens is personal. People call their parents, they call their grandparents. They think about all the people they have already lost, and they feel the strange mixture of relief and grief that comes from knowing that those losses have stopped being inevitable for everyone else, even though they couldn't be reversed. The world exhales. For the first few years, very little changes visibly. People continue living as they were. They go to work. They raise children. They sleep and eat and maintain relationships. But something has shifted in the background of every decision anyone makes. The horizon of life, which has always been somewhere between 70 and 100 years distant for most people, has effectively disappeared. There is no longer an endpoint to plan toward. No retirement age makes sense the same way. No estate to plan. No urgency imposed by the knowledge that time is running out. The psychological architecture of human life, which is built almost entirely around finitude, has to be rebuilt from scratch. Some people find this liberating. The pressure of the limited life, the sense that you must achieve things, must experience things, must not waste time, because you have only so much of it, dissolves. There is time for everything. You can learn a skill slowly. You can wait for the right moment. You can take the long view on every decision. Other people find it terrifying. The same finitude that created urgency also created meaning. Knowing that a moment will not come again is part of what makes a moment matter. Knowing that you can always do something later, that there will always be time, changes the texture of experience in ways that are not entirely comfortable. Philosophers have argued about this for centuries, whether immortality would be desirable, whether it would eventually become a kind of torture, whether an infinite life would retain meaning or slowly dissolve into a kind of timeless gray. We will come back to these questions. But first, there are more immediate consequences to trace. Within a generation, the most visible consequence of immortality is mathematical. People stop dying of old age, but they don't stop having children. The birth rate and the death rate, which have always been in rough balance across human history, or rather, which human civilization has painfully struggled to keep in some kind of balance, are now profoundly mismatched. Currently, the global death rate is about 7.7 deaths per 1,000 people per year. The global birth rate is about 17.4 births per 1,000 people per year. These numbers are not perfectly matched, which is why the global population is still growing. But they are in the same order of magnitude. Remove most of the death rate, keep accident deaths, disease deaths from infection, deaths from violence, but eliminate the roughly 2/3 of all deaths that come from age-related causes, and the balance collapses. Births continue, deaths plummet. The population grows at a rate that the Earth's carrying capacity cannot accommodate. This is not a slow problem. Within decades, the pressure on food systems, water systems, housing, and energy would become severe. The land area available for agriculture is finite. The fresh water available for irrigation is finite. The physical space available for cities is finite. Civilizations have faced population pressure before. The historical responses have not been gentle. Famine, war over resources, forced migration. The compression of billions of additional people into a world already straining under its current population would create pressures that no political system currently in existence is designed to handle. The response would inevitably involve some combination of birth control, voluntary or otherwise, resource redistribution, technological innovation in food and energy production, and, eventually, expansion beyond Earth. The question of who gets to have children and how many in an immortal world would become one of the central political questions of the age. It would be deeply contested, deeply painful, and it would force societies to make explicit the trade-offs that currently remain implicit. In a world where people die at 70 or 80, the question of reproduction largely regulates itself. People want children. They have them during the years when biology and social structure make it natural to do so, and the generations turn over continuously. In a world where people live indefinitely, the biological imperative to reproduce has not changed, but the demographic consequences of acting on it are radically different. Some projections suggest that even with dramatically reduced birth rates, if people chose to have children only rarely, once a century or less, the population would still grow to unsustainable levels within a few centuries. The math is unforgiving. Immortality and unrestricted reproduction are not compatible with a finite planet. Beyond population, immortality would reshape the structure of society in ways that are harder to quantify, but no less significant. Consider institutions. Democratic governments operate on the assumption of generational turnover. Leaders are elected, serve terms, retire or lose elections, and are replaced. The political culture shifts as generations with different experiences and values come to power. The institutions themselves evolve, slowly, sometimes too slowly, but they evolve. In an immortal world, leaders don't age out. Politicians who took office in one era remain alive and politically active into the next. The people who designed current systems would still be here to defend them. The mechanisms by which old ideas are replaced by new ones, the simple fact that the people who hold old ideas eventually die and are replaced by people who grew up in a different world, would be drastically slowed. This is not entirely bad. Experience matters. A politician or a scientist or an artist with 3 centuries of accumulated knowledge and perspective brings something to the table that no newcomer can match. The accumulated wisdom of a very long life is genuinely valuable, but it also means that the people at the top of every hierarchy, academic, political, corporate, cultural, would be extraordinarily difficult to displace. Young people entering any field would not be competing against people who have been doing it for 30 or 40 years. They would be competing against people who have been doing it for 300 years. The barriers to advancement in any established field would become nearly insurmountable. Economic inequality would take on a new dimension. Wealth accumulates over time. A person who lives for 300 years and saves and invests throughout that time, even modestly, accumulates resources that no person with a normal lifespan can approach. The compounding of wealth over centuries would concentrate resources in the hands of the oldest members of society to a degree that makes current inequality look modest by comparison. Property would also accumulate in new ways. Currently, wealth is distributed through inheritance. When people die, their assets pass to heirs, who recirculate them into the economy. In an immortal world, there is no death, so there is no inheritance. The land, the businesses, the financial assets of the oldest people never change hands. They accumulate continuously, without redistribution. These pressures would create social dynamics unlike anything in human history. Not impossible to navigate. Humans are enormously adaptable, but genuinely unprecedented. The frameworks of law, economics, and governance that current civilizations have developed are all built, at least partly, around the assumption of human mortality. Rewriting them for an immortal world would be the work of centuries. Something else changes, more quietly, in the texture of individual human lives. Relationships are shaped by time. The depth of a long friendship, the weight of shared history, the particular intimacy that comes from knowing someone across decades of change. These are products of duration. Immortality would give human relationships more duration than they have ever had before. But duration is not the same as depth. and an immortality would also subject relationships to pressures that finite lives never encounter. Consider a marriage. Current marriage vows often say, "Till death do us part." For most of human history, that meant something between 20 and 50 years for a couple who married young. In an immortal world, "till death do us part" could mean forever. The institutions of partnership and commitment would need to reckon with the fact that a commitment made at 25 might need to be sustained for 300 years. Some partnerships would thrive across centuries. The bond between two people who grow and change together over hundreds of years, who accumulate a shared history of incomprehensible richness, who know each other with a depth that no mortal relationship could achieve. That would be something genuinely new in human experience. But change is also real. People change over decades. Values shift. Interests evolve. The person you are at 40 is not the person you were at 20, and the person you are at 140 is not the person you were at 40. The accumulation of experience and the passage of time change people, and in an immortal world, that change continues without end. The social structures built around the assumption of lifelong partnership would need to adapt. Some people would maintain relationships across centuries. Others would cycle through many relationships across the span of an immortal life. Neither would be wrong. Both would simply be responses to a new reality. Friendship would also evolve. The particular poignancy of friendship in a mortal life, the knowledge that your time together is limited, that the moments you share are finite and therefore precious, would change. The urgency would ease, but the depth of what is possible over centuries of shared experience might compensate in ways that are difficult to imagine from inside a mortal life, and grief would change its character, not disappear. Accident and violence and disease would still take people. The loss of someone to an accident in an immortal world would carry a particular weight, not the soft inevitability of death and old age, but the sharp, pointless, arbitrary quality of a life ended before its natural close, in a world where natural close no longer exists. The body staying alive is one thing. What happens to the mind over centuries is something else entirely. Human memory is not a perfect recording system. It is reconstructive. Every time you remember something, you are rebuilding it from fragments, and the rebuilding process itself subtly changes the memory. Over decades, memories drift. Details that seemed vivid fade. Events that seemed momentous recede. The self that is remembered from 20 years ago is already somewhat fictional, a story constructed from imperfect materials. Over centuries, what remains of a personal identity? The philosophical question of personal identity, what makes you the same person across time, is already deeply contested in normal human lifetimes. In an immortal life spanning hundreds of years, the question becomes urgent. The person who took the immortality treatment at 40 and the person living in that same body 4 centuries later share a continuous physical existence in an unbroken chain of memories, but may have changed so profoundly in values, personality, relationships, and worldview that the connection between them is more like the connection between ancestor and descendant than between a person and themselves. Some research on extremely long-lived people, not immortals, but people in their hundreds, suggests that psychological adaptation to very long lifespans involves a kind of radical acceptance that people with shorter lives don't typically develop, a letting go of urgency, a capacity for patience that feels qualitatively different from the patience of a younger person, a relationship with time that has more in common with how we think of geological time than how we think of human time. Extended across centuries, these psychological adaptations would likely deepen. Immortal minds might develop cognitive and emotional capacities that we currently have no framework to describe. Or they might simply become very, very different kinds of minds than the ones we currently inhabit. Boredom is a frequently raised concern. Could a mind remain engaged across centuries? Would the accumulated experience of hundreds of years of living eventually exhaust the capacity for novelty, for surprise, for genuine interest in the world? This question might be less alarming than it first appears. The world itself changes, technology changes, culture changes. The range of possible human experience is not fixed. It expands continuously. A person alive for 500 years has not experienced 500 years of the same world. They have experienced 500 years of a world that has itself been continuously transforming. The question is not whether there is enough in the world to keep an immortal engaged, but whether the mind itself retains the capacity for engagement. And that capacity may depend on something we can't fully predict from inside a mortal life. There is a thought experiment in philosophy called the Macropulos case, after a story by the Czech writer Karel Čapek. It involves a woman who has been kept alive for over 300 years by an elixir. By the time the story takes place, she has become emotionally flat, disengaged from the world, unable to genuinely care about anything or anyone. When offered the chance to renew her immortality, she refuses. She chooses to die. The philosopher Bernard Williams used this story to argue that immortality would inevitably become a state of boredom and meaninglessness, that the things that make life valuable, its projects, its relationships, its passions, are all grounded in the fact that we are mortal beings with limited time. Remove the finitude, and the values collapse. This is a serious argument, but it is not universally accepted. Other philosophers have argued the opposite, that death is not what gives life meaning, but simply what ends it. That an immortal being could still form projects, still maintain relationships, still find the world genuinely interesting indefinitely. That the assumption that immortality would become meaningless reflects the psychology of beings who have always been mortal, not a necessary truth about the nature of value. Neither side can be certain, because no one has ever been immortal. The experience of a mind that has lived for 200, 300, 500 years is genuinely outside human knowledge. The arguments on both sides are projections, reasonable, carefully considered projections, but projections nonetheless. What we can say is that the meaning question would not be resolved simply by living longer. It would be an ongoing negotiation between the individual and the infinite. A question asked not once at the beginning of an immortal life, but continuously, every century, every decade, every year. And perhaps that is the most honest thing to say about immortality. Not that it would be wonderful, not that it would be terrible, but that it would be unprecedented, that it would require new ways of thinking about time, about identity, about relationship, about purpose, ways that we currently have no vocabulary for because we have never needed them. And yet, there is something that mortality gives that is very hard to see clearly from inside a mortal life, because it is so woven into everything that it is invisible. Urgency, the particular quality of attention that comes from knowing a thing, is temporary. The way a sunset is beautiful, partly because it is ending. The way a conversation with someone you love has a texture that comes partly from the knowledge that this particular conversation will not happen again in exactly this way. The way a piece of music, even one you have heard 1,000 times, is still finite in its playing, and that finitude is part of what gives it shape. Human creativity, art, literature, music, philosophy, is saturated with mortality. The great works of every culture are, at some level, responses to the fact of death. The attempt to create something that outlasts the creator. The attempt to find meaning in the face of meaninglessness. The attempt to say something true about what it is to be alive for a limited time. Would immortal beings create? Probably, yes. But what would they create? What question would drive an immortal artist, if not the question of how to live with the knowledge of death? The answer might be something we cannot currently imagine. New questions, beyond the ones that mortality has always forced upon us. New art, addressing concerns that only become visible once the old concern, how to be finite and still matter, has been answered, or the art might become something quieter, more contemplative, less urgent, not better or worse than mortal art, but reflecting a different relationship with time, longer forms, more patient structures, the work of beings who are not in a hurry, who can revise for decades, who can let an idea develop over centuries before committing it to any permanent form. What a world of immortals would make of themselves, culturally, psychologically, philosophically, is a question that only a world of immortals could answer. And that world has never existed. What does exist is this one, with its particular limitations and its particular gifts, its urgency and its grief and its extraordinary variety of human experience compressed into lives that are in the context of the universe, almost incomprehensibly brief. There is something in that brevity, something that generates, in the face of its own temporariness, art and love and meaning, and the persistent, unreasonable insistence that all of this matters. Even in the dark, even while you sleep, even knowing that morning will come, and that one day, far from tonight, it will come for the last time. Music slowly fading to silence. Good night, and whatever time you have, use it well.